All right, everybody, welcome and welcome back to many of you. My name is Emily. I'm the chef and coordinator here at New York-Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital's virtual teaching kitchen. I'm so pleased that you're joining us today for our plant-based Spanish tapas class. So just before I dive in, a few Zoom ground rules. If you wouldn't mind, I made an announcement earlier, but if you wouldn't mind just checking your microphone, making sure that you're muted throughout the presentation. We have the great privilege of having my colleague and friend, Catherine, joining us today to help us moderate our questions. So Catherine will be reading your questions in the chat box. If you've got anything that comes up for you, anything that you're curious about or missed a step or not understanding, or maybe you tuned in a little late, definitely put your questions in the chat box and Catherine will share them with me today. So bienvenidos, which means welcome in Spanish. Hola, hello. And there's your Spanish vocabulary for the day. So for those of you that, that don't know me, I have an Italian husband, but his family lives in Spain. So whenever we are permitted to travel and visit his family there, we get to go to Spain and to the Barcelona area. So I'm very, very lucky. And in my travels there, I just fell in love with the cuisine. It's such a vibrant, flavorful food. So I'm really excited to share some of the dishes that I learned to make. And it's kind of a challenge to come, to find the plant-based tapas, because a lot of tapas in Spain are either meat or seafood based. So this one's really for all of my plant-based friends out there who really wanted a tapas class, but often tapas are made with seafood or meat because that's very traditional. So for this class, I focused on the tapas recipes that I know that are plant-based. So Spanish tapas, first and foremost, Spain's signature snacks and small plates, Spanish tapas. So one of the reasons I love it is it's a lot of little plates you get to kind of pick and choose from. And they range from, a simple bowl of olives to a wedge of cheese with bread, to shrimp and garlic or slow roasted beef. So there's all kinds of different tapas out there. They vary greatly by the region. So just as in the United States, the North and the South, we have different styles of cooking. Similarly in Spain, there's different tapas, and I included a picture in your packet here. There's different tapas depending on where you go. So you can refer to this sort of as to get an idea of what kinds of tapas are in what region. So the tapas that we're focusing on today are primarily from the Catalan Barcelona area. And I wanted to mention the word tapas actually comes from the word tapar, which means to cover. So originally tapas were a slice of bread that you would use to cover your drink to keep anything from falling in. So that's where this sort of started. And now it's really burgeoned into a whole kind of cuisine. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with our recipes. We have 4 recipes that we're going to be making today. Our first is roasted mushroom caps. This one's very, very simple. And one of the reasons I love tapas is it's always a very simple dish to make, usually just using a few ingredients. And this one, we're going to be using our white button mushrooms. You can also use cremini mushrooms for this dish. So very simple white button mushrooms. And in order to clean your mushrooms, you want to take a damp cloth and just brush them, or you can very quickly rinse them, but very, very quickly. You don't want to waterlog your mushrooms. So just make sure you're not waterlogging them, right? So I'm going to pop the stems off because we're not going to use those. And I had a few shiitake mushroom friends left over from another class. So I'm going to throw those on the pan as well. All right, so as you can see here, I've got my oven preheating. I've got my sheet pan lined with parchment paper, and you can see these mushrooms are spaced out, right? They're not crowded, right? You don't want to overcrowd your mushrooms. They have to be socially distanced too. So spread them out so they have lots of space to brown, and that allows the air to move. We're going to be using some olive oil, so I'm just going to put a little olive oil over the mushrooms. And then we're gonna toss these with a bit of smoked paprika and powdered garlic. So this is our smoked paprika that we're using today. I'm gonna talk more about this ingredient because it is essential to plant-based Spanish tapas. It's essential to Spain. It's a very important spice for many reasons. Chefs call it red gold because it's so flavorful. So we're gonna do a little sprinkle of that. This is called pimiento de la vera in Spanish. And we're gonna add a little bit of garlic powder as well. Really flavor these up. All right. So I'm just adding a little sprinkle of each of those. We'll add a pinch of salt and we're gonna throw these into our oven. Okay. So they are ready to go in. Let's see how they do. So how easy was that? Our first recipe is done. You just let that cook for about 20 to 25 minutes. The mushrooms will start to brown, develop lots of umami flavor, a really, really rich flavor. Our next recipe is the patatas bravas. Before I jump into that, I did want to talk a little bit about smoked paprika. So when Christopher Columbus returned from his second voyage to the New World in 1496, he brought a special gift to Ferdinand and Isabella. So that was the capsicum peppers. Later, that was used to make paprika. So as often in those times, these vegetables were handed over to monks and monks would cultivate them. So they started cultivating these peppers around the 16th century or so in the Extremadura's La Vera region, which is why it's called pimiento, which means pepper, de la Vera, means from the region of La Vera in Extremadura. So that's the area sort of bordering Portugal. These peppers were originally dried in smokehouses on wooden racks to create a really rich and smoky and colorful spice that we now know as smoked paprika or pimiento de la vera. And as I mentioned, in the culinary world, we call this red gold. So you can see that beautiful, deep red color. Traditionally, the smoking is done by dehydrating the mature pepper in a smokehouse with oak firewood. This process is pretty slow. It takes about 15 days or so. And once they're dried, the stems are removed and they're ground. So there's 3 types to be aware of: sweet paprika, hot paprika, and smoked paprika. So there's 3 types. And this spice is so special in Spain that it even has its own museum, which opened in 2007 in the La Vera region. So maybe one day we can all go and visit the Pimiento de la Vera Museum. So that's my little spiel on the smoked paprika. Next recipe is going to be our patatas bravas. So that literally translates as brave potatoes. It's very, very simple. It does require frying. So I do have a cast iron pan with my avocado oil in it. And I'm gonna go ahead and just gently heat that up. If you do not want to fry your potatoes, there's also an option to bake them instead. So if you turn to that recipe, you'll see at the bottom, I wrote in an option for baking your potatoes instead if you want to make it a little bit healthier. So you can do it either way. Catherine, I just want to check in with, yes, I just want to check in with you.
We were thinking
How is
the
everyone
same
doing?
thing. Well, first of all, your community is so supportive, and many folks have been asking about the website recordings. So we've directed everyone to the Teaching Kitchen page on our website for at least one page devoted to classes and your demos, and a second page devoted to the programs you're also involved with, but specifically the Physician in the Kitchen program. So we hope everyone catches up with that. And then Sharon has a question about what is the taste of smoked paprika?
Ooh, good question, Sharon. So I kind of use it as like, it's not spicy, like hot spicy. It's very smoky. It's just like, it's almost like if you've ever used liquid smoke before, has a very similar flavor to that. Liquid smoke, of course, also contains like caramel color and a couple of additives. So I prefer to use pimiento de la vera, which is just the one ingredient. But yeah, the primary taste is just smoky.
And Chef Emily, 2 more quick questions. I'm sorry, let me just adjust the screen. And Sarah is asking, can you use olive oil to fry tapas?
So Sarah, that's a great question. The reason I'm using avocado oil is because it has a higher smoke point. So whenever you're cooking with oils, you do want to be careful because certain oils will, the integrity of the oil will be denatured by excessive heat. So by that, I mean, if you take your beautiful extra virgin olive oil and you heat it up to really high temperature, that it will start to break down and it will change the molecular structure of the fat and render it from being a healthy fat to a fat that is not so healthy anymore, even though you can't see the difference, taste the difference, or smell the difference. So that's why I'm using the avocado oil today because it does better at higher heat temperatures. There are also other oils that are good for high heat cooking as well. I believe it's safflower oil, peanut oil, and coconut oil. But of course, coconut oil has a bit of a flavor, so I don't use that one. Also, not all olive oils are created equally. Of course, there's refined olive oils, there's extra virgin olive oils. So some olive oils can be heated at higher temperatures than others. For example, olive oils that have been refined in the refining process, those can be heated at a higher temperature than the extra virgin olive oil. It's a really confusing world when you get into the world of fats and oils. So thank you for your question. So I'm just chopping, I just peeled these up and I'm just chopping them into bite-sized pieces. Yes, Catherine.
And now we'll move to this recipe with just one question. Jackie is asking, what kind of potatoes are you using and can you use any kind?
So great question, Jackie. So for these potatoes, I'm using Yukon. That's sort of my preference whenever I'm cooking. I just find them to be a little bit creamier. I don't enjoy russets. They're way too dry and kind of starchy. So I prefer the Yukon, or you could similarly use like a red potato. I think that would work too, but the Yukon's my preference. Yeah, good questions. All right, let me just take the temperature of that oil, see how we're doing. Getting warm. So you can always take a potato, and so I just want to show you the size that we're looking at here. Everything's kind of in nice, right, chunks. So you can always take a potato and put it in to see if it starts to sizzle. So what are you looking for? Around the potato, immediately you should see some light little bubbles happening. The other thing is whenever you're frying, you don't want to overcrowd your pan. Much like the mushrooms, you want to space all of the potatoes out and try to prevent them from touching if you can. So I have a slotted spoon ready here to scoop them out. You're going to want to fry them for about 10 minutes or so. So I'm noticing more activity around that potato, my little spy. So I think we can safely add the rest of them. One thing also to note whenever you're frying is that fry oil gets really, really hot. So you just want to be careful placing your potatoes into the oil. You can use your spoon to, kind of dip them in that way. And you definitely want your oil to be hot enough, because if it's not, then your potatoes get saturated with the oil if it's not hot enough. So I'm seeing a lot of good bubbles and sizzling happening. That's a really good sign. That's what I'm looking for. And whenever you're putting stuff into a pan with oil in it, you want to go low and slow, right? So don't drop it from high up, because that's where it's going to splatter and you can get injured with that. So get close to the oil and gently put the potatoes in it. All right. Questions, Catherine?
Chef Emily, no questions yet. Oh, I'm sorry. There was one about the brand of paprika. What do you recommend? And
Yeah.
Let's see. That was asked by Pamela.
Okay, great. So Pamela, certainly if you can find smoked paprika from La Vera region, that's really the best one. Sometimes they sell them in like a little tin and it says Pimiento de la Vera. That's the really most authentic smoked paprika that you can find. This one came from Stop and Shop or ShopRite, I can't remember which, and it just says organic smoked paprika. I don't know where they where they got it from. But as long as it says smoked paprika on there somewhere, or pimiento de la vera, I don't have a particular brand that I recommend. All right, any other questions, Catherine?
No other questions yet.
All right, great. So we're just gonna make our sauce for our patatas bravas. One of the reasons they're called brave potatoes is that we add some Tabasco to them. So I'll just give this a shake, and you can add this or not, you know, depending on what you like, but you wanna put about a teaspoon. This is supposed to be a spicy sauce. Now, you guys may know me, I'm not a huge fan of spicy food, so you can put less if you want. I would certainly permit that. I'm going to add some regular paprika, about a teaspoon, not the smoked variety. We're going to add some mustard, about 2 teaspoons of that. And then finally, we're going to add a little bit of vinegar. You can use red wine vinegar or Vinegar de Jerez. This is from the Jerez region, also in Spain. So either one works just fine if you don't have the sherry vinegar, which is about a teaspoon of that. So we'll just stir those all together, and it's a super simple sauce. You can serve it just like that, or if you want, you can heat the sauce up in a small pan and just make it a little bit thicker if you want to make it thicker. But this is it, you're done with your sauce. The kind of tomato sauce that I used was just a regular marinara. I think I saw that question come up from Rouse, which I like. Certainly if you have a marinara that you prefer, you know, any kind of tomato sauce that you like will be good. So that's it. This is our sauce. We'll set this to the side.
And
Questions,
Emily?
Kathy?
Yes, Kathy's asking what kind of mustard.
Oh, so thanks, Kathy, for asking that. I just use a ground Dijon mustard. It wasn't whole grain, it was ground up. Yeah, but whatever mustard you like, it doesn't really make a big difference in the recipe. If you like it a little bit, you know, a hotter mustard, feel free to use that. If not, you know, whatever you have will work fine. Thanks, Kathy. All right, so as our potatoes are cooking, and I see lots of nice bubbling activity happening here, it's gonna take about 10 minutes or so before these are done. And certainly one thing, whenever you're frying, you can reuse the oil several times before you discard it. So what I usually do, I don't fry very often, so I hate to use a good amount of oil and then throw it out. So what I'll do is I'll let it cool down in the pan when I'm done, and then once it's completely cool, I'll pour it into a glass jar and just set it behind my other oils for another use next time for frying again. So you can use it, you know, a few times before you know, at least 2 to 3 times before you have to get rid of it. And don't pour oil down your sink. It's going to clog everything up. You guys may already know that, but don't want to put oil in your sink. All right, so the way that I discard of it is I just keep it in that, either in that jar or pour it out into the woods or something like that. You know, it's a food product at the end of the day. So, all right, so these are starting to brown. We'll let them keep going a little bit longer because they do have to be tender as well. And I'm just going to drop the heat down because I don't want them to just brown on the outside and still be hard on the inside. So I'm just going to drop the heat down a little bit to let them, you know, cook gently over there. All right, so our third recipe, remember we've got the mushrooms in the oven, potatoes are frying up here. Our third recipe is going to be a manchego and tomato skillet dish. So I have this little baby skillet I'm using today, little baby pan. So we're gonna make a mini version. This is like tapas for 2. So let's use, I had half an onion that I had already cut into that I wanted to use up. And we're gonna just start by sauteing that nice and easy. And if you've never used manchego before, this is what it looks like, manchego. It has this sort of patterned exterior, and it's a sheep's milk cheese. So it's really, really flavorful. Manchego cheese is from the region Castilla de la Mancha. And once I get this onion in the pan, I'll tell you a little more about it. Just gonna slice this up. You can do this in a dice or thin slices, whichever you prefer. Tucking your fingers, right? Remembering your knife safety. And we're just gonna saute this onion in our little Little baby pan over here. Okay. I need sort of like a
Emily?
medium-sized pan in here. Yeah.
A question from Sarah about the oil. Do you need to refrigerate used oil?
No, Sarah, as long as you use it within 3 months, you don't have to refrigerate it. Yeah.
And E
All
is
right.
asking about the cheese. Does it taste similar to feta? Is it strong?
That's a really good question. It does not taste similar to feta. It's not strong in the same way that feta is. Feta is really, really salty. Manchego is a little bit milder. I think I would compare it more to like almost maybe like a cheddar kind of style. So yeah. All right, let's add our onion and get that going. So just a few minutes to saute that. Turn this down a bit. And let's add a little pinch of salt to bring out some of that moisture from the onion. The other thing I wanted to mention about, so Manchego cheese, let's give you a close up here, right? So you can see these, this really beautiful pattern as well on the sides. So it's from the region Castilla de la Mancha, made from sheep's milk cheese. And it's actually, it has to be aged at least 60 days. So if there's a cheese that says Manchego and it's less than 60 days, it's technically not a Manchego cheese. This cheese is protected by the Spanish government, meaning that only certain cheese can be labeled as Manchego cheese. It has to come from La Mancha region in Spain, and it has to be aged in local cellars. So the cheese that we have here actually comes all the way from Spain. So how is it made? The technical process consists of milking the sheep by hand and then putting the milk in these big curdling vats where these enzymes are added to help make it curdle. And then the curds are sliced up, pressed, sliced up, and aged. So you can actually see the texture of the curds in the cheese. All right. So I love Manchego. I think it's really, really tasty. And you know, it's a little bit lighter because it is a sheep's milk cheese. So it's not, it's less fat. Yes.
Chef Emily, often people ask about substitutions. Do you have any other cheeses to recommend for this recipe? And Jackie's asking about Gruyere.
Ooh, so that's a really good question. I haven't actually made this with any other cheeses, but you could certainly, you know, any cheese that like slices well and melts well would probably be fine. Yeah, you could probably do a Gruyere. Gruyere has a very strong taste though, so just it's going to change the flavor of the dish. The most authentic would be the Manchego. All right. Anything else, Catherine? I'm just getting my garlic ready here for our Manchego and tomato dish.
No further questions yet, just a quick comment, and we've directed people about how to get the update of the booklet. Some folks received the booklet early registrations without the potato recipe, so
yeah, so that was actually sent this morning as well in the reminder email. The updated one with the potato recipe was included in that, but I'll also send it to everybody who attended after class. With your feedback survey, I'll send it to you with that as well, just in case you can't find it.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. All right, so I've got my onion sauteing. I'm just gonna slice some garlic up. We're gonna throw that in. Very, very simple. And then we're gonna add a can of fire roasted diced tomatoes. Of course, you could use fresh tomatoes if they were in season. If you had beautiful garden tomatoes you wanted to add in, you could throw those in too. I do love the addition of the fire roasted tomatoes because they, of course, fire roasted has that that flavor, that really nice smoky flavor. So we're just gonna put all that in there. I'm gonna add our can of tomatoes here and let that cook down a little bit, kind of combining everything together. All right, so this pan is really a very little one. So just kind of stir that all together, mix it up well so the onion and the tomatoes have time to kind of hang out. And let's just let that simmer. And then we're gonna add cheese and parsley on top of that. So let that cook for a little bit. I'm gonna start off by slicing. You don't wanna eat this. This is too waxy, right? So slicing off the that waxy exterior that protects the cheese. And we're gonna cut this into slices, nice triangles. So if you were to go to Spain, you would definitely find Manchego cheese boards every bar that you go to, right? So you want to slice this into little wedges like that. And then we'll let that cook for another minute or so, give it a little more time. It should really sit together for about 5 minutes or so. Let's add some chopped parsley to this as well. And then we have one more recipe we're gonna work on. I started off thinking 3 recipes was not going to be enough, but maybe it would have been enough. But I wanted to have more plant-based options for all of you. So,
And Chef Emily?
Yeah.
An interesting question from Sharon. Would you use the waxy parts in stews and soups?
No. So Sharon, that's a really good point. I know that often I will use like a Parmesan rind or something like that and save those in the fridge or even the freezer and throw it into a minestrone or something like that, but not in this case, because this is actually way too waxy. You wouldn't want that getting in your food. All right, I'm going to chop up a little extra parsley because we'll need it for our next recipe. Put this off to the side, and let's check on our mushrooms here because I think that they're done. They smell really good. All right, so you can tell here they look beautiful. They've released their juices. They're nicely browned, and so these are done. So I'm just going to set these to the side and let them cool down a little bit before we serve those. All right, let's get our final recipe going over here. This one's very, very simple as well. Just gonna get our pan hot. And for this one, we're gonna throw in, we've got green beans. And I've just trimmed these tops and bottoms. You can actually buy them trimmed too, it's even easier. Tops and bottoms, trim those. We're gonna throw this into the pan with some water, good old fashioned water, and put a cover on that and just kind of let them steam together. Let's throw a pinch of salt in with that water too, just to help keep them bright green. All right, so that's just gonna steam over there while we finish up our other recipes. I think our potatoes are done. They're starting to look nice and browned. We do wanna move these around once in a while, which I didn't do because the heat under the pan may not be evenly spread throughout. So these are almost done. They're really looking good. They're starting to brown. Here, let me take one out that show you guys what it's looking like a little bit closer. Okay. So you can maybe see here, some nice browning happening. And let's see how they are on the inside. All right, so it smushes pretty easily with a spoon. So I would say these are just, about five minutes or so from being done. They're really very close. All right, our mushrooms are ready. Let's finish our Manchego dish. So stirring all this up together and putting our cheese on top. And we're gonna kind of melt that in. Catherine, I'll just check in with you on questions.
No further questions yet about the recipes.
Okay, great. Thank you, thank you.
That presentation looks wonderful.
Thanks, Catherine. So I'm just kind of positioning that Manchego cheese in a nice little circle there. And then, so after we started with the onion, we sauteed that, we added the garlic, we added did we add the paprika? I can't remember. Let's add some paprika just in case. Because as we know, it goes into almost all of our dishes. And then we added the cheese. We're gonna top it with, let's put a little bit of pepper on top as well. And we're just going to close this off with a lid to let that cheese melt. So you want to find a lid that fits pretty snugly so that it will really steam well. All right. Okay, I think we're ready for our potatoes. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to prepare the bowl. Just make sure you do want to get like, let's see, I'll get a little paper towel. That'll be good. Do you want to get a little paper towel and line your dish so that when you take them out, you know what, I'll do it here so you guys can see it even better. So when you take them out, it has something to absorb any excess oil. All right. So as you can see, these dishes are really, really simple. They don't really require that many ingredients to put together. And it's really fun because you can, you know, have a couple of nice variety of things to pick and choose from. All right. So let's start skimming some of these out. And again, I'm just going to use the paper towel. I'm using a slotted spoon. This is an essential kitchen tool if you're ever going to be doing any frying. You can also use what's called a spider, not the kind that, you know, might be hiding in your living room. The spider is a little bit wider with a big, you know, has a really big, wide kind of slotted spoon. So it's easy to skim things from the surface. All right. Almost done here. So patatas bravas, you will find them at any tapas bar. It's sort of one of the most common tapas that you'll find in Spain, and it's enjoyed by everyone. Everyone loves patatas bravas. It's often also served in addition to this red sauce. It's often served with mayonnaise. So in case you didn't get enough fat from the frying, then just throw some mayonnaise on top of that. And yet Spanish people are so healthy, right? It's always perplexing to us.
And Chef Emily, watching the chat is very fun because people are talking about meeting at a restaurant for tapas and also
nice.
about making tapas tonight. I certainly will shop for that cheese tonight. And
yeah.
A question from Les.
Yep.
If you have the time, can you roast the potatoes?
Yeah, absolutely. Les, thank you so much for asking that. So as you know, we don't typically fry things here in this kitchen because this is a health-focused kitchen. So we typically do roast things. And I did include, and you'll see it in the packet, at the bottom, there's a note. If you wanted to roast the potatoes, please, by all means, roast away instead of frying.
And Chef Emily, Kathy is asking, can this work with sweet potatoes?
So Kathy, it can work with sweet potatoes. I have had it with sweet potatoes, but it's not very traditional or common that you would find them with sweet potatoes. Usually you find them, you know, looking like this. All right, so we've got our potatoes ready, and this is going to be served with our little sauce. I see my green beans are steaming back here. That's perfect. Let's get our little mushrooms plated up. So you can just serve these, you know, however you like on a little, you know, I'll use this little round plate. We'll use the other one for the green beans since they're a little longer. And these are really cute. You know, you can stick a toothpick in them. You see why spreading them out is so important because they do release a lot of liquid. So each little mushroom needs space to help evaporate out that liquid so that it doesn't become soggy and you get this nice, beautifully, you know, deeply browned mushroom. Remember, these were white button mushrooms, so they have transformed completely. And certainly you can make these with cremini mushrooms. The little cremini mushrooms is good with that too. Or I had a few shiitake mushrooms, so I threw those on the pan. There you go, your little mushroom tapas are ready. All right, and let's check on our cheese dish. That's really good too. I'm afraid my lid was a little low, but I think it looks good. Okay.
Chef Emily, one more potatoes question.
Yeah.
Gail is asking, can you air fry the potatoes? And then I have another question for you about the recipe.
Great. So Gail, I love that. I don't have an air fryer, so I have not tried it, but people are obsessed in love with their air fryers. So if you have one and you've had good results making crispy potatoes with your air fryer, absolutely use an air fryer. It's definitely a lot healthier to use. I
And
just want to
Judith
show
is
everybody this.
asking about the tomato sauce. Can you just clarify what tomato sauce you're using?
Yeah, sure. So the tomato sauce that I used today was the Rouse Marinara homemade, this one. And I just mixed that with a little bit of vinegar, some mustard, some Tabasco, and I think that was it. Oh, and some paprika. So I just mixed those together, and that's how we got our Brave potato sauce. Yeah. Great. So I just want to show this to everybody. So this is our skillet, Manchego and tomato skillet. So this is nice. I would serve this right in the pan with a nice piece of crusty bread and just kind of dip right into it if you wanted to enjoy it that way, or you could just have it on its own. It's really tasty that way too. So we have a few minutes left here. Let's check on our beans, our green beans. We gotta have something green on this table, right? Ah, perfect. So I just want to show you. I added the beans in the liquid, and now all of the liquid has evaporated and the beans are cooked. So how perfect and easy is that? At this point, let's throw a little, add a little bit of oil to that. And I have some garlic that I prepared ahead of class, some chopped garlic. That's going to go in there too. And then guess what else we're adding? Smoked paprika and a little salt. All right. Perfect. So we'll just saute that together, 1, 2, 3. You don't want to go too long on this because the garlic, you don't want to burn the garlic. So you just want to go kind of move this around kind of quickly to get the flavor everywhere, cook the garlic through, just 30 seconds to a minute. So that's almost done. All right, let's put this up in our little bowl so you guys can see. So, traditionally, the sauce would either be served on the side, or you would have a plate of the potatoes and the sauce would kind of be squiggled over with the mayonnaise squiggled over as well. So that's how that would be served. You guys can see this well. All right, there we go. All right, let's plate up our beans. Show you guys this. Right, so you can see the beans now, they're nice and glossy. They cooked through with the water first, and then they got the garlic, oil, and paprika treatment. Okay, now they're going all over the counter. They didn't want to make it to the plate. Here we go. Ooh. Okay, they're a little bit unruly green beans. Try to kind of pull them together into a little bit more of a bunch. All right, there you have it, everybody. Your plant-based Spanish tapas class. So I hope you give some of these recipes a try. And Catherine, with the few minutes we have left, if you'd like, we can take a few more questions.
Sure, at least one more question. And just to let you know, the compliments are coming in. This looks so simple and easy. Thank you very much. Another great class. So E is asking, sure, and E is asking, is there a difference between kosher or other salts? Let's see, we did not need much in these recipes, correct?
Yeah, we didn't use that much salt in these recipes, but there is a difference between kosher. Oh, I almost forgot parsley. You can add that on top of the mushrooms, on top of the beans, on top of everything. Certainly, kosher salt is different from other salts. It's more about what the salt looks like close up. So if you were to take a microscope and put a little grain of kosher salt and look at that closely, you would see the salt is sort of shaped like a pyramid, has this kind of diamond shape. That's why it's called diamond crystal salt. And why chefs often prefer the use of kosher salt is because of the way that it blends in with the food. So when it's exposed to heat, because it's that specific sort of triangular shape, it kind of melds and coats food well and integrates in with all of the other flavors of the dish. So that's sort of why chefs love kosher salt. Table salt, if you were to take your regular table salt and put that under a microscope, you would see like these little cubes. And those tend to kind of just sit on top of your food instead of really melting in. So that's the main difference between kosher and table salt.
And Chef Emily, Sarah is expressing a reaction that many other people feel, that not only are you a good teacher, you make it all look so fun.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. I have a lot of fun doing this. It's really an honor to be able to share these recipes with all of you. And I'm so grateful to everybody for tuning in, for watching these programs, for sharing them with your friends and family. It's certainly a great way to stay connected. And I hope these recipes will inspire you to try something a little bit different in your kitchen. I know sometimes we're a little bit limited by what we can do in the kitchen, and we all tend to get into a routine or a pattern. So it's good to break things up, shake it up with different flavors, include some variety in your life, and cooking and eating different food is a nice way to do that. So thank you, everyone.
And Chef Emily, you can end with just another reminder that your classes are now being posted on the website, and maybe describe a few of your demos that are apart from the classes.
Yeah, so thanks, Catherine. So in addition to these classes that I've been doing, we've been putting together a website that includes sort of shorter videos of recipes. So each video is, between 5 to 15 minutes. And it includes the recipe. So if you wanted to, just gather a little more inspiration, and I'm not teaching a class that day, or you just wanted to try something new, you can certainly refer to the webpage that I'm sure Catherine is sharing with all of you and see some demonstrations that are a little bit shorter, 5 to 15 minutes. And also included with the demonstrations are the recipes. So you can scroll and see the recipe for the dish should you choose to make it.
Okay, and on that note, we'll thank everyone again and wish them a great day, even on this rainy afternoon, and we'll see everyone next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine, and thanks to everybody for watching. Salud, buen provecho, to your good health and to your healthy appetite. Hope to see you again here sometime soon. So thank you.
Thank you.